Welcome to DigiDig, where we uncover the past and explore the future.
From above, the Amazon is an ocean of green. It is millions of square miles of dense, unbroken canopy stretching to the horizon. For decades, science operated under a doctrine called environmental determinism. This theory argued that the Amazon's nutrient-poor soil and volatile climate created a counterfeit paradise, an environment that looked lush but lacked the resources to sustain a large-scale civilization. Researchers concluded that these conditions limited human development to small, fragmented tribes, nomadic groups forced to move constantly just to survive. This academic consensus effectively closed the book on the region. For most of the 20th century, the world believed there were no lost empires left to find beneath these leaves. Proving that theory wrong required a look at one specific pocket, the eastern foothills of the Ecuadorian Andes. This is the Upano Valley, a landscape dominated by the Sangay volcano, a massive active peak that has blanketed the region in ash for millennia. That volcanic ash makes the soil incredibly fertile, driving the growth of a forest canopy so thick it acts as a literal visual fortress. Despite the difficult terrain, early explorers began reporting rumors of unnatural, geometric shapes rising out of the forest floor. Entering the Upano Valley meant stepping into a void. The jungle used its own density to keep its history hidden. Field work in the 1970s and 90s was a test of endurance. Archaeologists hacked through thick vines and worked through relentless Andean rans. Visibility was the greatest enemy. Line of sight was often restricted to just a few feet, making it impossible to see the surrounding landscape. Mapping the area required slow, analog measurements. Researchers struggled to plot coordinates in a terrain that actively resisted being surveyed. There is a psychological toll to this kind of work. Knowing you are surrounded by history, but being entirely blinded by the environment. Human biology was mismatched against the scale of the Amazonian overgrowth. Traditional exploration simply couldn't see far enough to grasp the truth. When they finally managed to dig into the volcanic soil, they found concrete evidence of a sedentary society. They uncovered intricately painted vessels used to brew chicha, a sweet maize beer. These weren't the artifacts of a nomadic group, but a settled culture. Nearby, the teams identified strange raised earthen mounds that had been deliberately flattened on top. Because they couldn't see past the next wall of trees, the researchers assumed these were just isolated platforms for a few primitive huts. They were documenting the individual features of an empire without the vantage point required to recognize its shape. Every step those researchers took through the mud had been a step across a buried grid. The ground beneath their feet was a highly engineered metropolis. This civilization dates back 2,500 years. While the Han Dynasty was rising in China and the Roman Empire was expanding across Europe, this Amazonian society was building a massive urban network. The infrastructure is staggering. Hidden in the valley is a deliberate grid of 6,000 monumental earthen platforms, each built to support homes and public buildings. Connecting these hubs are massive 33-foot wide highways. These roads cut perfectly straight lines across the valley, ignoring the ravines and hills as they stretch for miles. Surrounding the urban sprawl is a complex system of drainage canals and agricultural terraces designed to manage the heavy rainfall and maximize the fertility of the volcano's ash. The explorers were literally tripping over the curbs of a city that once housed tens of thousands of people, entirely blinded by the leaves. The Upano Valley complex is the largest ancient urban network ever documented in the Amazon. It was a garden city, a metropolis that didn't clear the forest to build with stone, but instead wove its urban density directly into the agricultural landscape. Millennia of human management had transformed this region into a domesticated landscape, tailored by its inhabitants to support a thriving urban center. Back in the 1990s, the archaeologists were still frozen in the mud, surrounded by a ghost city they had no way of seeing. The ruins of an invisible empire had been touched, but proving its true scale would require an entirely new way to pierce the canopy. The Amazon basin remains one of the last great uncharted frontiers on Earth, covering millions of square miles of South America. It is shielded by a towering, overlapping canopy. Multiple layers of dense foliage stack on top of each other, blocking nearly all sunlight from reaching the forest floor. This biological density creates an absolute optical barrier. Traditional optical satellites and aerial photography capture only the tops of the trees, rendering them useless for mapping the ground. Because of this, archaeologists have historically relied on slow, localized physical excavations. This physical constraint has severely limited our understanding of the region's true history. This biological interference has historically obscured the landscape, physically preventing the observation of any large-scale structures hidden below the trees. To bypass this barrier, researchers rely on an active remote sensing technology called light detection and ranging, or LiDAR. Instead of passively photographing light that reflects off the canopy, LiDAR generates its own. A high-altitude survey aircraft flies in precise grid patterns over a target area, carrying a downward-facing LiDAR sensor. The objective is to use physics and mathematics to digitally strip away the jungle. By threading laser light through the leaves, this technology exposes massive, ancient landscapes concealed beneath the dense trees. Mapping the Amazon no longer requires moving millions of tons of dirt. It requires threading light through the leaves. To accomplish this, the aircraft fires between 500,000 and 1 million near-infrared laser pulses every single second. LiDAR does not operate like an X-ray passing through solid matter. The light cannot penetrate wood or leaves. Instead, finding millimeter-scale microgaps, the laser pulse fractures into multiple returns. The first return bounces off the highest tree crowns. Intermediate returns scatter off mid-level branches. Only 1 to 5% threads the needle. This last return hits the true forest floor and bounces back up. This diagram illustrates the time of flight equation. The sensor calculates distance by dividing the speed of light by the exact time it takes for that specific return to arrive. By executing this calculation millions of times per second, the system plots millions of precise three-dimensional coordinates. The subcanopy map emerges through the sheer brute force statistical probability of firing 1 million lasers a second until enough light hits the dart. The raw output of this process is called a point cloud. At this stage, it is simply a chaotic three-dimensional digital replica of the forest. This raw data remains useless for archaeological analysis until it undergoes a massive computational sorting process. Software applies morphological filtering algorithms to automatically identify and isolate the vegetation points. The algorithm evaluates the points, identifying height differences and slope angles that are too severe to represent natural terrain. What remains is the digital terrain model, or DTM. It is a pristine, bare earth topological canvas. Algorithms computationally remove millions of trees from the dataset, instantly revealing the ancient, engineered landscape that lies beneath. In 2015, Ecuador's National Institute for Cultural Heritage commissioned a LiDAR survey across the Apano Valley. The target area spanned a 600 square kilometer swath of forest along the eastern foothills of the Andes. This grayscale LiDAR image shows the resulting digital terrain model. With the digital canopy stripped away, the bare earth reveals perfectly geometric artificial mounds. The data uncovered more than 6,000 distinct, engineered earthen platforms. These platforms were arranged in standardized groups of 3 to 6, organized deliberately around central, low-lying plazas. Archaeological excavations date these structures to between 500 BCE and 600 CE, a timeline running parallel to the Roman Empire in Europe. With a peak population estimated at 30,000 people, matching the size of Roman-era London, these algorithms revealed more than just isolated ruins. They exposed a 1,000-year-old urban footprint that rivaled European civilizations in both timeline and scale. The most critical details lie in the gaps between the platform settlements. Looking at the top half of this 3D terrain visualization, perfectly straight lines cut through the topography, serving as a regional-scale, interconnected network of dug roads and superhighways. These roads measured up to 10 meters wide, were excavated deeply into the earth, and stretched for 20 kilometers. The engineers constructed a grid system, forcing the roads to intersect at precise right angles across the landscape. Extensive agricultural features, including hillside terraces and highly managed drainage canals, were seamlessly integrated into the city grid. This heat map displays the macro-scale density of the region. High-density red zones are tightly connected by a vast web of pre-Hispanic dug roads, proving this was a unified system rather than isolated villages. This evidence refutes the colonial-era depiction of the Amazon as an empty wilderness, proving it was instead a highly managed anthropized landscape. By using the physics of light to digitally delete the forest, scientists have resurrected a 2,500-year-old garden civilization engineered directly into the earth. The Amazon's true history is no longer hidden in the shadows, but rewritten in light.
Thank you for watching.